Shawn, great to see you, man. Welcome to Pop Alternative.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, it's interesting. We're talking about It Feeds, and I love this film. And I want to kind of talk about, the landscape of horror films because there's so much kind of cool, crazy things happening in this film. But we know how it is kind of as people like in the industry, kind of as filmmakers and everything. It starts by reading it on the script. Even before kind of going in and filming it, what was that like, that initial first read of It Feeds on the script, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what's always so important, right? If a script doesn't grab me in a first read, I always feel like it's gonna have a hard time translating to the screen. And sometimes, you can massage it, you work it, you figure it out, and then it ends up well. But usually, if it reads well the first time, I know that it's gonna be a solid project, and that's exactly how I felt with It Feeds. One, I'd actually done a film with Ashley Greene before,
Yeah.
and she was already cast. So I loved working with her. I knew how talented she was. And so reading the script also with her in mind was really helpful. And I just loved it. I mean, I've been in a ton of genre films. I enjoy genre films. And this was familiar enough that I knew that it would be palatable to genre fans. But I also think that it had a few unique twists and turns, and I thought basically every character was well developed and well fleshed out, including the character Randall that I played.
Yeah.
And again, like without giving too much away, Randall basically is a character that throws a monkey wrench into the plans, into the story of
Yes.
a bunch of these characters. And I don't want to say he's the villain because I don't think that he is, but I think that he's forced to make really challenging, difficult decisions that end up having horrible consequences. And
Yeah.
I liked playing a character like that, that some would maybe see as being the villain, but for me, I just thought that he was doing everything he could basically to save his family and forced to make these horrible decisions, and that's kind of what kind of keeps pushing the story forward. So I thought it was an impactful character.
You
as
said
well.
perfect amounts without going into big details, because I'm always walking on eggshells with these interviews because I'm a big fan of just going in fresh. Like I love the fact that sometimes I get stuff in advance before a trailer is even out and I can just watch it. It's the best feeling.
I think it's the only way for me now. I think it's the only way to watch stuff because I feel like trailers now completely spoil projects.
Yes.
And the last movie that I went in completely blind with, because I was sort of told to, was a movie called Strange Darling, that I loved. And I actually had just worked with Kyle Gallner, who is one of the stars of that movie. And I went in completely blind because I started seeing it coming out. And I was like, I want to check this out. And I had no idea what it was about. I had no idea. I had heard there might be some twists and turns, but that didn't give anything away. And I walked into that without even seeing the trailer and absolutely loved it. And I was so happy that I didn't have any spoilers walking into it. But yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting. You started in the beginning of this interview talking about the fact that you have worked in the horror thriller genre before. You enjoy doing it. And like I said, the wheel hasn't been like fully like reinvented in the fact that horror movies have always been around, right? Like Westerns and like other things, the genre's always been around, but there has been this big kind of excitement and surge in popularity with the genre. And I'm wondering for you, whether it was, more now working on something like It Feeds, when did you start really noticing that kind of resurgence and big appetite for like horror movies, would you say?
I'll be honest, I don't think that it's ever gone away. I feel like there is always a demand for that. And throughout my career, I've made genre films. We talked about Frozen. I made The Ruins. I made Mother's Day.
The Ruins. I still get nightmares about The Ruins, man.
Yeah, that's another great kind of horror survival. I've made so many of those films. So for me, there's always that. It's a staple, and I feel like there's always that sort of audience for it. And again, what's challenging is how do you, as an actor too, or a filmmaker, reinvent it and feel like, okay, I'm not playing the same type of character over and over again. But that's what's interesting for me, and it's. I also love genre storytelling because I think you can take. Sometimes it's social issues, sometimes it's personal issues. Sometimes it's just, you can make things that are maybe slightly more heightened, palatable for an audience.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
absolutely.
And I think, for Chad Archibald, there is a lot of, and I won't go into all the details because I think it's for him to sort of talk about, but there was a lot of personal elements and tragedy and trauma for him in his life, as we all have, that he put into this film. And that was a huge part of what drew me in when I really spoke to him about it. And it also grounded Randall in this movie, because you basically meet Randall, the character I play, at level 10. There's this whole backstory of what's happened to him and his family, but we don't, as an audience, you don't see any of that. You just meet him. He kind of is like full on. And that's what he talked about to me. He said something really interesting, which is, as a performer, you're always trying to create a backstory, but he's like, Randall and Riley could have had their own movie, basically their own prequel. We're just meeting Randall about 3/4 of the way through his movie. Yeah. And so he's like, that's the way to think about it. We meet him revved up in the final act of his movie. And he's like, that's the energy that we need to bring to Randall. We need to keep it elevated. And when now watching the film, there's never a down moment. It's like that. The stakes are level 10 for Randall from the very first time he hits the screen. So that was a challenge in itself, but also something that I thought was interesting. There's no backstory. There's no ramping up. You just meet him at this level and he continues sort of there throughout the film.
Definitely on the edge of your seat watching it feeds, and it kind of feels like an adrenaline rush. And that's one of the things that I love about like watching horror movies. And I feel like, I'm a filmmaker now as well. And I feel like I watch things a lot differently now, after being kind of on set and seeing things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I find it interesting too, because there are going to be a lot of conversations, right, with Chad about the film and about Randall and the character and everything. But like, maybe it depends on the project, but are there a lot of conversations like on the days, like during production, or a lot of these kind of like on Zoom or like meeting for coffee before you go to production? Like, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think you can kind of fine tune the performance and stuff like that on the day, but and sometimes you find a whole new direction, right? Unless you have a significant amount of rehearsal, basically you're hearing and performing your lines with the actors the first time when you get on set. So I feel like, especially with a film versus television, there's a lot of kind of like, oh, well, that's interesting. Like maybe we can sort of lean into this. And it's not about rewriting the scenes. It's just about exploring and taking it in slightly different directions and emotionally. But yeah, for me, a lot of the conversation and preparation has to happen beforehand. And so I talk to Chad a lot, and then I go off and do my work, and I kind of create this backstory and ideas and choices. And then I show up on set, and sometimes you get it wrong. And it's like, oh, well, I thought we talked about this and we want that direction, but it's like, that's not playing the way that I want it. Or maybe you misunderstood, me as an actor misunderstood kind of the direction. And then that's where the fine tuning on the day happens, Yeah. But yeah, and sometimes there could be, huge revelations like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Yes, this is where the scene is supposed to go. Often for me, I watch a movie and realize, that's what I should have done. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's only within the context of a whole film that you can really understand the best choice, or, oh, that would have been a better choice, And I think maybe an audience for the most part doesn't necessarily see that. But as an actor, as a storyteller, I think sometimes you get to see the choices you should have made when you're sitting in a dark theater watching the whole thing in context.
Absolutely. We'll get back to It Feeds, but I have another specific kind of general question I want to talk to you about. We're going to go way back a little bit now because, I grew up in Canada, read the Animorphs books all the time as a kid and then watched the show. But I kind of want to know because, you also worked in the kind of Marvel X-Men world, and I kind of want to know, can you even prepare yourself to work in those worlds of like superheroes or like different fantasies? Like, I just want to know. And I know like when you did Animorphs, you were a kid, you were still like a teen doing X-Men, but it was like you had that experience with those things. But I was just wondering, like, can you prepare yourselves for kind of transforming into those worlds, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was very lucky with both those things. First of all, I grew up reading comic books and reading X-Men in particular, so I totally understood the world. I totally understood the character. Although the Bobby Drake that I played was not the Bobby Drake in the books. Obviously, he was aged down and sort of put in this relationship with Rogue, I think, to sort of appeal to this idea of these mutants finding their abilities, not only the teachers and people that were already adults and had dealt with the ramifications of having these abilities, which I really liked. I thought that was an interesting way in for the audience to see these younger kids basically learning to deal and come to terms with these abilities they have. But yeah, so I had a whole slew of information and details about the X-Men because I watched the comic, or I watched the cartoon, and I had read the comic book. Same with Animorphs. I wasn't aware of that, but there was 300 books to read, So I could read. I think I read maybe the first 20 books before I started shooting Animorphs, and so that, I mean, that's what prepares you. You can, and the other thing too, it's like, especially with Animorphs, like the whole morphing and stuff, that was brand new, like green screen stuff. I'd never done that, but you do that once or twice, and you sort of get used to that experience, and then it's like, okay, I know how to do this and what to expect. It's very strange the first couple times you do it, and it feels hokey. And doing the ice thing for the first time when there's nothing there by yourself, you're like, okay. But then you see it on the big screen with the effects and the music, and you're like, oh, this looks cool. So just don't worry about it next time. Don't feel self-conscious.
Let me tell you something. I'm a 1991. I'm a 90s kid, right? So you know where I'm going, how old I was when those movies came out. There was nothing cooler being a kid going to see those X-Men movies, man. Like, you don't understand. And you know what? Being a kid, like getting bullied and everything, having those movies like really helped and was an escape. So to you and the whole cast and crew, like, thank you for that. Seriously, man.
Nice.
Like, honestly,
cool.
It's the craziest thing. I did want to ask, because, your brother Aaron's been on this show before, you know what I mean? And you are twins. Like, you guys look very similar. Is there ever a situation where people come up to you, like, I know and go to him and be like, I love you in Animorphs, so like go up to you and be like, hey, I love you. Are you afraid of the dark episode? Has that ever happened?
That has happened consistently since for 30 plus years.
Because that was Aaron, Are You Afraid of the Dark, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think Aaron did 2 episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark, actually.
So does anyone ever come up to you and be like, I loved you in Are You Afraid of the Dark? Is that ever
I get it. Yeah. I mean, I was at an airport the other day and someone came up and they're like, oh my God, I love you on SkyMed. And I was like, oh, that's actually my brother Aaron.
Yeah.
Or I love you in Warehouse 13. I love you in Killjoys. I love you in Smallville. I'm like, which one? Because we were both in Smallville, but Aaron was the one that was really in Smallville. And sometimes it's hard because I actually have a really good sense of whether I should let people know that or not, because some people think when you're like, oh no, that's not me, that's my twin brother, they're like, you don't have to tell me you have a twin brother if you don't want to talk to me. Like, you don't have to be a dick about it. Because a lot of people don't know we're twins.
Yeah.
And some people are like, get really embarrassed. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, we're
especially when you
twins.
were younger, you both look like really similar too.
Yeah. And I'm like, and people are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, we get it. I get it like once a week. Like, you don't have to be sorry. We look the same. We're both actors. Like, it's no big deal. So, but sometimes I just say, thank you. Thank you. I was very good in SkyMed.
You were great
because I know that
you were so good in Lock and Key, man. So
and I get it. At Ginny and Georgia, like I get all sorts of stuff. And again, I can kind of tell whether I should correct people or just say, oh, thank you so much. Because some people get upset. They feel like you're trying to blow them off.
One day they're just going to go up to Aaron and be like, hey, man, you were so good being caught in that ski lift in that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it's happened to him at some point.
No, absolutely. We talked about kind of talking to Chad about it. I just want to know more about kind of like, you go on this movie that has kind of a lot of things that kind of happen that make the audience go like, ooh, like this is a bit unsettling, right? And I feel like in a lot of ways, that is the point of making a horror film at times. What was that like, can you tell certain scenes are like unsettling, like while you're filming them? Like when are you conscious of the audience member, like watching this movie? Is that happening a little bit more after you wrap? Like, I'm just curious about that. Like the audience, like reactions to things, right?
Again, I think if it's on the page, the only time that I get to experience a film that I'm in a pure way, like the audience experience it, is when I read it, right? Because otherwise, then I know what's going to happen, and then it's so analytical when you're shooting it and you're breaking it down, you're shooting it out of order, And so when I watch a movie for the first time, it's painful because first of all, I'm critiquing my performance or just, watching that and being like, how did that work? Secondly, I already know where it's going. There's no twists and turns. I'm already well aware of what happens. So I think when I'm the audience is when I read it for the first time. And then as I'm shooting those scenes, I have to remember how I felt when I read it for the first time. And that's kind of where I can be like, oh yeah, this is going to be a big moment. I really need to, be careful with how we lay this trap sometimes, because it's you're especially with horror films, you're laying emotional traps and you're laying scare traps, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you don't want to give too much away. I think again, you have to be very aware on the day of the moments you're trying to create. And I always try to remember emotionally how I felt the first time I read it, because that's the pure version of me experiencing this stuff.
I'm pumped for people to finally be able to see it. Feeds in theaters, premiered, world premiered at Panic Fest recently, which was really exciting as well. Are you a fan of horror movies too, as a Shawn Ashmore?
Yeah.
Do you like watching? I love horror
films.
What is your the scariest movie you've ever seen and your favorite horror movie, because those are two different movies if you think about it.
Well, okay, so the horror movie that I watched once as a kid that scared me and I've never been able to watch again, I don't even know if it's that scary, it's Pet Sematary. I was like 9 and I watched that and it scared me to death, you know? My favorite horror movie, it's impossible to say. What I will say is I have a Shining poster hanging up right next to me. I love classics. I love Rosemary's Baby. I love The Shining. More modern stuff. I like Insidious, but basically ghost stories scare me the most. So slashers and stuff like that, they don't bother me at all. But like entities, ghost stories, the unknown, you know, the supernatural really, really scare me. So like a lot of James Wan stuff has really scared me. So yeah, I mean, but again, I watch a ton of stuff. So as far as like my favorite, I don't know. I'm gonna go back to like, again, I've probably seen The Shining and Rosemary's Baby the most of all of every horror film.
That's absolutely fair. Rosemary Baby, like there's so many movies that are like that exist now. If it wasn't for those films, they wouldn't exist. So it's like,
and for me specifically, like Rosemary's Baby is kind of a masterclass in performance as well and character, because you know you watch the movie the first time and you're lost, and all of a sudden it's like, well, Cassavetes is in on this the whole time, and you're like, oh my god. But on a rewatch, it's obvious that he was there the whole time. You just didn't know what you were looking for. And to me, that's what I love about his performance and love about that movie, is that he's not lying to the audience. Polanski and that performance wasn't playing a trick. If you watch it back, you can see that he's in on it, or at what point he's in on it. You just don't know what you're looking for. And I love, because twists in horror films and genre films are very tricky, because I often feel like you're being manipulated, and it's like, oh, the character's lying to you the whole time, and then it's like, oh, there's a twist. I think it's effective, and you know, the usual suspects moment when you're not being lied to, you just don't know what you're looking for, and that's very, 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 very tricky. So I'm very conscious of that when I read a script or a film where I'm like, oh, there's a big twist in it. I'm like, is the audience being lied to, and that's why the twist is effective? Or is it just a really well-crafted movie and you just don't know what truth you're looking for?
I totally agree. For me, man, like The Strangers with Liv Tyler, Scott Speedman is the scariest movie I've ever seen. I mean, I just feel like when I saw that, I was like, nothing is scarier than this. And like, I never want to ever like be in a situation where it just feels even like a little similar to this. But then I love movies that like, you know, just make you very kind of like you're engaged but uncomfortable at the same time, with like get the hell out of there, or like what is going on. And like The Dinner Party Gone Wrong, the movie The Invitation with Logan Marshall Green, directed by Karen Kusama, that movie got me into filmmaking. Like that movie, I saw that movie and it's like Dinner Party Gone Wrong, and like the way it's filmed and like the cult kind of aspect of it. And it's like, this is what I want to do. Like I want to make this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. This is, again, I think this is, at the time, this movie scared the crap out of me. And now I think it's kind of like parodied and it doesn't have the same effect. But like I watched the Blair Witch Project in the theater and it scared the crap out of me. That's
scariest movies of all time too. That's my second one.
Some people, but it's either one or the other. Some people are like, it's just ridiculous. It's grainy footage. They're out in the thing. They don't see anything. And
the ending of that movie made me like, I couldn't sleep, dude. The ending of that movie.
For me throughout, like I was just uncomfortable. The performances are so raw and real. And the idea of being out, again, because to me, there's multiple things that are working. It's right. There's this psychological survival horror, which is just like 3 people lost in the woods. That's scary. You know what I mean? We're going to die out here. And we came out here to make a movie and we're having fun. And this is all kind of a joke in this lore, except we got lost and now we're going to die out here. And they start to fall apart as people and friends. But then also there's this thing that is not even harming you, right? It's like, it's you find these weird bone things and it's shaking the tent at night. But it's fucking with you. And I found it so scary. And obviously like the one moment where it's like kind of validated that this thing is really real is like that last moment at the end. And it's so striking. And it's just a guy standing with his back to a wall.
That was my number 2. And then the scream, dude, hearing that scream. Oh my God. Like, it's insane.
But some people watch it and they're like, "That's not scary at all. It's silly. It's just like this grainy footage." Is like, "What's scary about that?" And I was like, "I don't know. It scared me. It worked its way into my psyche, and you're stuck in the theater watching this, and I just felt like I want this to end so badly, but I also can't leave. You know?"
Yeah, absolutely. No, like it's, oh my God, I love horror movies so much. And I love that Feeds and you're great in it. And I can't wait for people to check it out. Congrats to the team and Chad Archibald. Shawn, it was great chatting with you, man. Thank you so much for your time, dude.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Do you have any like anything to plug or any socials or anything that people can like check out or?
Yeah. Well, I'm doing a TV show right now called The Rookie that's on ABC or CTV up in Canada every Tuesday. So, check that out. Really proud of that show and working with some other Canadians, Nathan Fillion and Melissa O'Neill. What else? And then, you can check me out on Instagram at Shawn R. Ashmore. I've got a couple other films coming out, one called The Huntsman. So I've got some stuff happening, and if you're into video games, go check out Alan Wake 2. That's
you got a lot going on, dude. I'm really happy for you, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You have a lot going on. That's awesome. Well, this has been Popturnative, youtube.com/Popturn for previous episodes. This is Shawn Ashmore and Peter Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popturnative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popturnative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.